good. Breathing is good. It is true, isn't it? That breathing is
It's
good
a good reminder. I mean, we forget. I mean, obviously we're breathing to stay alive. That's autonomic. It just happens. But to breathe intentionally for the purposes of relaxing and calming down and getting centered and being mindful, that's something we forget about. And so we go through these moments, most of us, I think, where we get all frenzied. Then it's like, oh yeah, breathe. If we have that, some people don't have that tool, but then, oh, okay, I can manage this, whatever it is. All right, I've got this. So I think it's good advice any time of any day. So it worked this week. I don't think it's a name I've used before.
No,
I try to be original too. I try not to repeat. So that gets challenging.
Yes. And another thing, we can get a little bit blasé and casual about things, can't we? And you'll see it, won't you? Like so much advice, I suppose, and things that you see during a day is like, yeah, that's definitely a good idea. And your rational mind says, yeah, I know it's a good idea to breathe, but then doesn't take that opportunity to actually do it, does it? Just like, yeah, I know breathing.
Yes, that client, the attorney client I mentioned a week or two ago. I don't have time for that. I'll be here now later. That's the mentality.
Yes. So we would invite you this morning to actually do that. Why not to do a conscious breath now? One of my favorite phrases of the moment is, where are you right now? And it's connected to this, isn't it? Because of course, geographically you are somewhere and you can only really be here, but are you aware of the fact that you are here now? And a really good way of doing that, courtesy of the Slug and James this morning, is to breathe. Because if you focus on your breathing, it does bring you into where you actually are, which arguably is I know people do have occasional experiences of not being in their bodies, and there are all sorts of ways of doing that, but it's a very good way of being back in the body and having a conscious breath. So I'm going to have one now. You can have one as well, James.
Sure. It's easy.
Oh, yes. So let us know how that went for you. Isn't that good? And it's happening all the time, isn't it? As you say, consciously or unconsciously, aren't we? I mean, it's a moment for appreciation as well, isn't it? That you're still breathing and that your body's doing it for you for most of the time. Isn't that amazing?
Well, and that's my default. When I catch myself, when I notice that I'm unsettled or I'm getting nervous, it's like, or anxious or whatever the state is, it's like, oh, breathe. That's the very first thing. And with the breath is sort of the less conscious question of, what are you grateful for? And just that moment, everything settles down. It does. I'm reminded of the founders of Challenge Day, who are, two heroes in my life, Rich and Yvonne Dutra St. John. And yes, Dutra is a Portuguese name. He is a Portuguese heritage. Very good. So,
but hold on a minute, James, before you go any further. So they of Portuguese extraction ancestry. Are these folks available for interview? Could we get them onto the show? We've talked about them so much.
It's possible. They are so incredibly busy changing the world one person at a time, like really creating a world in which, the mission of Child's Day is to create a world where every child feels safe, loved, and celebrated. And they're not just referring to children, they're referring to the child in all of us.
Yes.
So to feel safe, loved, and celebrated, and they are absolutely committed to that mission. So they have expanded over the 30 or 40 years they've been doing this program, which focuses on bullying in public schools or schools in general. But it's so much more than that. Anyway, they work together. They live together. They work together. They have family time together with their kids and grandkids. They're just always together, but they are so incredibly busy. It's like they have 3 minutes a day in the total 24 hours to relax. Maybe, obviously they sleep, and that's an exaggeration, as what I do to make a point often. But they got to a point where they were literally passing each other at work, and going, hey, like this. And to a degree, taking it for granted that they loved each other and that they were committed to the relationship and all this stuff.
Yes,
They do a lot of work on making the relationship a healthy relationship. So they formulated a ritual that they do when they notice that is going on, because that's where I got the Notice, Choose, and Act from, was this organization. It's like, oh, I'm noticing that Rich may be saying, I'm noticing I've seen Yvonne 15 times in the passing today, but I haven't stopped once to be with her.
Yeah.
And so when one of them catches themselves that way, in that moment, they just, take the shoulders or whatever, they stop, they look in their eyes and say, right here, right now. That's how they set it up. They face each other, look eye to eye contact, take a deep breath together, and then it takes, 15 seconds. But it makes a huge difference in their day because they've now landed with each other and seen and felt each other. And that's where breath is important. Whether it's in a relationship or work or any situation, taking a moment, as you said, to be here now, to get present in the moment and say, oh, I'm living a life that I love, and then carry on. Just remind yourself, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if I'm doing what I'm doing and that's not why, maybe I should change what I'm doing. It's that moment of awakening.
Yes. And if that's all we've managed to impart today, I'm satisfied. I might even take the rest of the day off, because that's been brilliant.
The beginning of another weekend on Monday.
Yes, I've got that Friday feeling suddenly. No, you're absolutely right, and that's what we're up against in a way, isn't it? And this applies, of course, to migration or any area of life. Is that conscious, rational, conceptual mind that says, yeah, I know, and often
I'll be here no later.
And yes, exactly, and that faculty has its uses, but also I think can stop us, or if we let it. From deeper access to the juice, marrow, and delight of life and joy of life, as it's busily saying, yes, I'll be here now later. Those immortal words from that fantastic gentleman who we owe a debt to for sharing that with us, because it is a great teaching in its own right, isn't it? What he said to you. And that moment, which we will urge people to do. We talked about glimmers. I don't know if you caught that the other day. Idea of glimmering is very beautiful. Recently learned about a term called a glimmer, which is essentially the opposite of a trigger. Glimmers are those micro moments in your day that make you feel joy, happiness, peace, or gratitude. Once you train your brain to be on the lookout for glimmers, the more they appear. Now, this can tie in with that, can't it? Taking a breath, having a pause, consciously connecting, and it can. Go on.
In my mind, because my mind does this immediately, I said that doesn't quite align with the image for me, because a trigger is a part of a weapon, basically, that you pull a trigger and a bullet fires out, literally. So I struggled a little bit with that imagery with any kind of thing we're imagining. But if I stick with that, a trigger, I said a glimmer is not a trigger; it's the bullet. The trigger is the thing that happens. And then when you pull the trigger, what comes out? Is it something that's lethal, like a negative thought or hatred or whatever? Or is it a glimmer? So I got this almost a clown gun where you pull the trigger and it says bang, it's not real. So I'm triggered. What comes out? Poof, it's a glimmer. That's what comes out when I'm triggered, right? So trigger, a glimmer, to me it works better in my imagination. It doesn't make the other one wrong. It works better for me.
Well, that's always useful.
I do a lot of images.
Yes, adapt it to what works for you. And I loved what you shared. So, we can also adapt and share that the moment, of if you have someone else in your life who you can do that with, and you can do it in the mirror as well, can't you? You can catch sight of yourself or hold your own hand for a moment and say, I see you. And let's just have a moment. You can do it with a pet. You can do it with passers-by in the street. I mean, it's best to sort of give them a bit of context first. But this is something that is thoroughly recommended and endorsed by the Good Morning Portugal show, especially by these two hippies on the screen at the moment who are pondering this.